Good evening, friends. My name is Dr. Srinivas. I am from Mangalore. I'm practicing spine surgery. I have done my fellowship in spine surgery. For the next half an hour, I'll be speaking about the MRI of the lumbar spine, the basics. As you know, to have any monumental structure, a strong foundation is required. And here, today, we are starting with the basics of the MRI of lumbar spine. How to interpret, how to study. The pathology part will be covering in subsequent classes. To begin with, all things are difficult before they are easy. When we start our post-graduation days, whenever the senior PGs put up the MRI or the consultant asks questions, initial few days it will be very difficult. But with knowledge and being systematic, it makes easy eventually. Evaluation of the spine is, for radiologic terms, we have multiple investigations. It can be X-ray, it can be CT scan, and it also can be MRI. But when given a choice, currently the best will be the MRI. Have no doubt about that. MRI will show everything, whereas X-ray and CT scan have their own limitations. The cherry on the top for this is there is a lack of ionizing radiation with MRI and the ability to evaluate the bony and soft tissue in detail, which the other two investigations can't provide. For an orthopedician, it is very, very important to be able to interpret an MRI study. And everyone makes errors, but to cut down the errors, we have to be systematic in learning and application. The diagnosis for which a patient comes to us, we come to a diagnosis based on history, clinical examination, laboratory findings, and radiologic findings. See, most of the clinicians will have this, but if you have the ability to interpret the radiologic findings, that makes you an outstanding clinician. Coming to physics of MRI, the body has natural magnetic properties, and mainly due to the hydrogen nucleus. And this is prevalent in the body in water and fat. This is the gist, and this much is sufficient. Don't try to learn too much about neutrons, electrons, protons. It's not required for us. It's for the radiology people. For us, the basics is this much. It is more than sufficient. What we have to learn is what are the changes which we have to identify. For the indications part, we have malignancy, infection, fractures, degenerative, and spondyloarthropathies. But for all these things, what is most important is knowing about the red flags. When it comes to malignancy, old age, sudden onset of pain, constitutional symptoms, if you come across such things in a patient, then don't hesitate to order for an MRI. And when you're suspecting infection, no doubt about that. This is the investigation of choice. For fractures, X-ray and CT are sufficient. Yes, I agree. But when it comes to ligamentous complex injury or disc injury, definitely the investigation of choice is MRI. And for pathologic fractures such as osteoporotic, have no doubt, MRI is the standard. For degenerative conditions, mainly to see the canal compromise, the only solution is MRI. And the gold standard of investigation, radiologic investigation in spondyloarthropathies is MRI. CT scan and X-ray have a disadvantage because bone marrow edema is picked up earliest in the MRI. Contraindications, friends, it can be implantable infusion pumps, aneurysm clips, pacemakers or implantable defibrillators, stimulator systems such as spinal cord stimulator, bone fusion stimulator, cochlear implants, and also the orthopedic implants. When it comes to orthopedic implants, if there is a strong union, then don't hesitate to order for MRI. Have no doubt about that. Here, commonly, everywhere we get to see 1.5 Tesla MRIs. But if you have a doubt, then it might be wiser to opt for a 0.3 Tesla MRI. So that will be more safer to the patient. And there are certain sequences, I mean certain softwares, which are available within the MRI, which helps to cut down the artifacts due to the implant. And the traditional thinking of MRI being contraindicated in case of stainless steel implants can be negated by using of a low Tesla MRI and with softwares. So don't have any hesitation about that. The sequences with respect to MRI of a spine involves 3 sequences. Commonly, these are seen all throughout everywhere. The sequences are T1 weighted, T2 weighted, and stir. Knowing these 3 is of paramount importance, and it's the basic. How to identify a T1 weighted sequence? See, there are advantages and disadvantages of all the sequences. For a T1 weighted sequence, the advantage is it is very good in evaluating anatomy and especially the bone marrow. See friends, can you see my pointer? The bone marrow. For the bone marrow, the best sequence is the T1 weighted. And the disadvantage is the edema is not poorly seen here. It's the other sequences for it. 3 things are very important when you try to analyze an MRI. Water, bone, and fat. How does water look in a T1 weighted sequence? Water appears dark or hypointense. And in the spine, where do we see water, friends? It's in the cerebrospinal fluid. And here, see my pointer over here, and this is the water or the cerebrospinal fluid. And you can see that it is dark, or in the MRI terms, it is hypointense. Fat appears bright, hyperintense. I am pointing to the fat in the bone marrow, and this appears bright. The other area where you can see fat are the epidural fat seen between the lamina and the cord, and the other area is the subcutaneous area. So these 3 areas contain fat, and T1 weighted sequences, these areas appear bright. And the other is bone. Friends, if you see my arrow, it's ending at the outer cortical margin. The crux here is the cortical margin contains maximum amount of collagen and calcium. Collagen and calcium, they appear dark, and that is how the bone appears dark in T1 weighted sequence. Friends, and the other thing is air. See the air here behind the subcutaneous fat. In all the sequences, let it be any sequence for that matter, T1 weighted, T2 weighted, or stir, the air appears dark. Coming to T2 weighted sequence, this is the one which most commonly all of us are used to. And this is good in that sense, they are sensitive for a pathology and edema. The pathology in the sense mainly for the within the epidural space or within the canal. Water in the T2 weighted sequence appears hyperintense. I hope you guys remember whenever we used to study for entrance, there was a very famous mnemonic. Water appears white, World War II. And here we are applying it. Water in the CSF makes it appear bright or hyperintense. Fat, they also appear hyperintense. You can see in the bone marrow and in the epidural space and in the subcutaneous fat. The bone, the outer margins, they appear dark or hypointense. And the reason is because of the collagen and calcium. This is a dark horse. It's known as STIR or short tau inversion recovery sequence. And friends, to find out any edema, this is the best sequence. Let the edema be due to a inflammation or infection or tumor or fracture. This is the best sequence. And this sequence is least susceptible to artifacts. Artifacts in the sense, suppose a pedicle screw instrumentation has been done to spine, and while analyzing it, artifacts are bound to be seen. This artifacts is most impacted in the T2 and T1 weighted sequence, whereas in STIR, it is the least. And here, water, that is the CSF, appears bright. The fat appears dark. So the fat in the bone marrow, guys, which you can see, appears dark. The fat behind the posterior border of the dura, in between the two lamina, that is the epidural fat, appears dark, and also in the subcutaneous region. And the bone, as usual, it appears dark. So putting it in a nutshell, fat appears bright in T1 and T2 weighted, whereas fat appears dark only in one sequence, that is the STIR. And this specialty or the advantage makes it easy to detect edema or any ligamentous injuries in the STIR sequence.